Hello, I'm Alan Todd, and this is Arts Focus. I live in Adelaide, the capital city of South Australia. There's roughly 1 million people in the city, give or take, and a lot live out in suburban areas and out in some of the bigger rural centres. Like any capital city, we have a state art gallery and we have public sculpture, some going back 200 years, some as recently as a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, there is an attitude out in the community that says if anything is out in a public space, it's fair game. And so we have seen graffiti, we've seen damage, we've even seen theft of artworks. I have to wonder, what the mentality of people is that decide that the cultural artifacts that are so lovingly put together by artists are somehow fair game. Capital cities around the world have always invested in public art, as well as creating collections of art that they see as representative of culture, history, and community well-being. In contemporary times, Chicago and Beijing are good examples of cities that have embraced this idea of public art. The great civilizations and cities of the past were no different, with art being seen as a demonstration of power on the one hand, often the power of an individual leader or dynasty, and on the other as a testament to the creative energy of its artists. Rome and Greece are particularly good examples, but there are plenty of others. Artists, however, remain largely anonymous, and even today, a public piece of sculpture may have a plaque attached to it, naming the artist, but the sculpture or the statue soon assumes a life of its own. Paintings and state collections fare somewhat better in terms of identifying the artist, with exuberant guides and explanations on the wall repeating the information. Who doesn't know that Da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa? For all of that, though, public art remains largely anonymous, and therein lies the problem. As a capital city, Adelaide is no different than any other when it comes to the vandalism of public art. We don't have a lot, but if you venture down the main shopping mall in the heart of the CBD of Adelaide, you'll come across the pigs, the pigeon, and the mall's bulls. At any time, Rundle Mall is alive with people, even more so during March at festival time. In March, the Adelaide Festival, the Adelaide Fringe Festival, WOMAD, the International Music Festival, the Street Car Circuit, the old Clipsal 500, and the Future Music Festival, among other things, fill the city with people. We often get up to 500,000 visitors, but it isn't the visitors that are a problem. When graffiti is scrawled over the said pigs, bulls and pigeon as some form of public protest, it's got nothing to do with the art itself, but a lot to do with the people of Adelaide. Let's go back a bit though to 1914 in London, just to show there is nothing new about art vandalism. The suffragettes, worthy as they were, determined to draw attention to the lack of access to the political process, decided to attack Velázquez's Rugby Venus in the National Portrait Gallery, on the grounds that the then imprisoned Emily Pankhurst, leader of the movement, was more beautiful than the naked woman in the painting. The net result was, though, that triplex glass was then installed in front of all paintings. The highly polished floors washed with turpentine to remove the slipperiness so the guards could catch the next perpetrator, and the chief of police advised that women be banned from the gallery altogether. Voting rights were still some way off, and World War I took over as the focus of the nation, while the Rugby Venus, well, of course it's still there, but it does actually carry scars of the attack. Colonel Light, or at least his statue, stands on Montefiore Hill above the city of Adelaide. He points the way. In recent times, he became a target for activists trying to rewrite history. Now, whatever the value of their motives or whatever, poor old Colonel Light has suffered the consequences. British colonialism, like every other kind, did irreparable damage to cultures and languages in Australia, India, Africa, North America, Asia, wherever the European powers went. With colonialism and its monarchic adventurers long dead, only the statues remain. Colonel Light, for all the good he did in laying out Adelaide like a military camp, wonderful wide roads you could drive a regiment down, he has copped the blame for the actions of his masters, as have statues in the UK in particular. People have taken to pulling them down. Of course, pulling down a statue of Saddam Hussein may have gratified a population fed up with tyranny, but in itself it didn't solve anything. History is history no matter who writes it, and we all know that things happen that we shouldn't be proud of. When it comes to invoking the Almighty, though, damage is not confined to statuary, although it's a frequent target. While Taliban fighters shouted Allahu Akbar in unison as the Buddhas fell in a heap, in 1975 a disgruntled former schoolteacher, Willem de Rijk, slashed through Rembrandt's night watch shouting, "I did it for the Lord," before being overpowered by guards. Whatever reason his God gave him, night watch, like the Rugby Venus, still carried the scars he inflicted. Whether it is attempts to rewrite history, make political protest, or inflict damage in the name of a god, all that is achieved in the end is the destruction or permanent damage of irreplaceable cultural artifacts. Leaving aside power, politics, and religion, we come to a whole other category. There are art lovers who will never embrace change or an alternate viewpoint. There are plenty who use the term modern art essentially as, well, what do you want to describe it as? A means to denigrate everything that happened in the 20th century. They don't understand it, therefore they don't have to support it. One Tony Shafrazi was an artist with dreams of changing the world. On the afternoon of April 30, 1974, he sprayed "Kill Lies All" on Picasso's Guernica, a sacred object by any definition. In a fevered speech, he shouted, "I am an artist!" to the astonished crowd of art lovers present. Picasso, having died a year earlier, would no doubt have pointed out that that was the point. And then in 1986, at the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, a 31-year-old painter named Gerard van der Bladeren took exception to Barnett Newman's Who's Afraid of Red, Yellow and Blue, the third version. It was being displayed and he thought it wasn't art. In fact, he said, "My kid could have done that." Well, I think any reasonable person would have pointed out that considering that piece of work is 544 centimetres by 224, it would have taken a very tall kid to have reached to the top, or even to have gone from end to end without running. However, attempted restoration by a worthy restorer did more damage over the ensuing year when she painted over the whole thing with house paint. What a pity. Art critics notwithstanding, there are also the souvenir hunters. The Art Gallery of New South Wales took a very dim view of the female visitor who kissed a 19th century statue of Narcissus, wearing red lipstick, and leaving a very large stain on the buttocks of the said sculpture. Obviously, selfie territory. No wonder those things have been banned. In 2012, another visitor to the same gallery pulled the nose off a statue of a clown by Swiss artist Ugo Rodinoni. Whether the visitor chose to wear the nose isn't known, but the lipstick smacker appeared endlessly in the media as her 15 minutes of fame came and went. So why is it that public art is so targeted? In some ways it makes no sense at all. Now, I know there's plenty of examples of art being used for political purposes or whatever, but when you look around the streets and you see street art, and that has been vandalised with tags being scrawled all over it, you think, well, who are these people? Obviously, street artists want to be taken seriously. We may not regard it as high art, but it's certainly an expression, and there are people out there who are more than happy to cover walls in something interesting. But then there's a whole group who think that all of this is simply out there for them to destroy. Now, I say destroy. If this is just another example of Andy Warhol's 15 minutes of fame, right, okay, we live in the age of celebrity. But what gives people the right to destroy expensive artworks, I honestly have no idea.